Everyone treats the dinosaurs like they were the beginning. T-Rex, Velociraptor, Brachiosaurus. The movies, the museums, the documentaries. It all starts there, like prehistory was just a countdown to the Jurassic. But here's what nobody tells you. Dinosaurs didn't appear until about 230 million years ago. Earth is 4.5 billion years old. So what was here for the hundreds of millions of years before that? The answer is stranger, and honestly more unsettling than anything Jurassic Park ever put on screen. A world where the apex predators weren't reptiles. They were insects. Dragonflies the size of hawks, scorpions the size of dogs, millipedes as long as a car, and every single one of them, every giant, crawling, terrifying thing in this world, existed because of one invisible force that had turned the atmosphere into a biological supercharger. This is the Carboniferous Period, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why the scariest thing about it wasn't any of the creatures. Three and 50 million years ago, no humans, no dinosaurs, not even close. The continents are slowly grinding toward each other, beginning the long process of forming Pangea. But the landscape that would actually define this era? Swamps. Endless, steaming, cathedral-scale swamps. The trees here aren't anything you'd recognize. Towering club mosses and horsetails reaching 30 meters tall, forming dense canopies over soft, saturated ground. And they're doing something the planet has never seen before at this scale. They're photosynthesizing. Constantly. Relentlessly. Carbon dioxide in, oxygen out. But here's the detail that changes everything. The bacteria that decompose dead wood doesn't exist yet. So all of this plant matter is just accumulating, not rotting. Just stacking up, locking carbon into the ground and flooding the atmosphere with pure oxygen. The result, atmospheric oxygen climbs to 35%. For context, we breathe 21% today. That number, 35, is the reason this entire video exists, because what that number did to life on Earth was something evolution had never encountered before and would never encounter again. If you were standing in a carboniferous forest, the first warning wouldn't come from the ground. It would come from above, a shadow, then a sound and a low mechanical buzzing that you'd feel in your chest before you heard it with your ears, and then you'd see it, a dragonfly, except not in any sense you'd recognize. Meganeura had a wingspan of up to 75 centimeters. That's roughly the size of a peregrine falcon. Now think about the last time a regular dragonfly buzzed past your ear and made you flinch. Then scale that up by a factor of 10. Meganeura wasn't just oversized. It was a fully functioning aerial predator, compound eyes providing near 360-degree vision, spiked legs designed to snatch prey out of midair, an ambush hunter and an active pursuit hunter both, depending on what the moment called for. It held the title of Apex Aerial Predator of the Carboniferous for over 50 million years. For context, modern humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Meganeura ruled the sky for 50 million. But here's the question that Meganeura opens up. How does an insect, a creature with no lungs, no bones, no internal structure to support massive body weight, get to that size? The answer is the same answer for everything in this era. But before we get there, we need to go to the ground, because what's on the ground is somehow worse. Arthropleura, a millipede. Except the largest specimens reached 2.5 meters long. That's 8 feet, half a meter wide, 30 armored body segments, a pair of legs under each one, shuffling through the undergrowth like a living freight train covered in plating. When it shed its exoskeleton, which arthropods do periodically as they grow, it left behind full-body ghost impressions in the ancient mud. Paleontologists still find them today. Fossil trackways pressed into stone, 4 meters apart from one another, left by something that was simply passing through. Here's the part that surprises most people about Arthropleura. Despite its size, despite the nightmare silhouette, it was harmless, a herbivore. It ate decaying plant matter. No venom, no predatory claws. Just an 8-foot millipede minding its business, making everything within eyeshot deeply uncomfortable. So, hawk-sized dragonfly in the air, 8-foot millipede on the ground. Both of them shouldn't exist by any biological logic we'd apply today. Now let's talk about why they did. Here's the thing about insects that most people don't know. They don't breathe like we do. No lungs, no circulatory system pumping oxygenated blood. Instead, insects have a network of tiny tubes called tracheae. running through their entire body, delivering oxygen directly to tissue. It's a brilliant system, and it has one hard architectural limit. An insect can only grow so large before those tubes can no longer deliver enough oxygen to keep the whole body running. It's a ceiling built into the design. But in the Carboniferous, at 35% atmospheric oxygen, that ceiling got pushed dramatically higher. The tubes could sustain larger and larger bodies. The insects grew to fill the available space, like a gas expanding to fill a container. There's a second theory, though, and this one is darker. Some researchers argue the insects didn't grow big because they could. They grew big because they had to. Too much oxygen produces free radicals, unstable molecules that damage cells and degrade DNA. Young insects can't regulate their air intake the way adults can, so growing a larger body was a survival response. More mass meant slower oxygen absorption. The gigantism wasn't ambition. It was a defense mechanism against the very atmosphere they lived in. The Carboniferous gave these creatures everything, and quietly, it was also building the terms for their destruction. But before we get to the ending, there's one more creature you need to meet. And unlike Arthropleura, it's definitely not minding its own business. Pulmonoscorpius kirktonensis, a scorpion, up to 70 centimeters long, almost 28 inches. The largest modern scorpion, the emperor scorpion, grows to about 8 inches. Pulmonoscorpius was nearly 4 times that. Fully terrestrial, venomous stinger, 2 pairs of eyes, 1 central set for spatial perception, 1 lateral set for detecting light, plus sensory receptors along its body for tracking vibrations in the ground. This wasn't a creature you could avoid by watching where you stepped. It could detect you. It actively hunted amphibians, small reptiles, and other arthropods. And unlike everything else in this world that looks threatening, Pulmonoscorpius wasn't a passive presence. If you were in its range and small enough to qualify as prey, size alone wasn't going to protect you. If this is the kind of deep history you want more of, the Alterverse has a lot more of it. Hit subscribe so you catch what's coming, because where this story ends is somehow more unsettling than anything we've covered so far. The Carboniferous swamps weren't only a land problem. Lurking in shallow water and riverbanks was a creature called Megarachne. When paleontologists first discovered its fossilized remains, they made an announcement. They said they'd found the world's largest spider. The name they gave it, Megarachne, literally translates to big spider. It took decades and a much better fossil to realize the truth. Megarachne wasn't a spider at all. It was a sea scorpion, a creature so alien in shape that trained scientists looked at it and invented a spider. That gap between what we expect to find and what was actually here is kind of the whole point of this era. The sea scorpions it belonged to were some of the most formidable hunters in Earth's history. Earlier relatives had reached lengths of 2.5 meters. Their claws alone measured 45 centimeters. This wasn't a primitive world. It was a sophisticated one, running on completely different rules than anything that came after it. Now, remember what I said at the beginning, that the scariest thing about this era wasn't any of the creatures? Here's what that means. Everything in the Carboniferous, the Meganeura, the Arthropleura, the Pulmonoscorpius, existed because of the oxygen. They didn't earn their size through millions of years of competition and hard evolutionary struggle. The atmosphere handed it to them. The environment was the architect of this world, and the creatures were its passengers. And that's exactly why it all ended. Over millions of years, all that undecomposed plant matter got buried deeper and deeper under sediment, compressed, slowly converting into what we now call coal. The carbon dioxide that had been locked away stopped being locked away. Oxygen levels began to drop. And then, as the climate shifted, the vast tropical swamps began to shrink. Less swamp, less photosynthesis, less oxygen. And when the oxygen dropped, the giant insects lost the one thing that had made their size possible. There was no predator that defeated them. No asteroid, no volcanic winter, no single catastrophic event. The environment that had created them simply moved on. They became too large for the world they were living in. By 299 million years ago, the last Meganeura had flapped its wings, not in a great battle, not against some superior predator, just quietly, incrementally, in a world that no longer had room for what they'd become. The same conditions that made them extraordinary made them fragile when those conditions disappeared. 30 million years after the giant insects vanished, the first dinosaurs appeared. Tiny, barely 10 centimeters tall, descendants of creatures smaller than your hand. The era that everyone remembers, the one that became movies and museums, came after this one. Built on top of it, the coal beneath the ground right now is the compressed remains of those Carboniferous forests. The dragonfly that buzzes past you this summer is a direct descendant of Meganeura, scaled down by a world that no longer has oxygen to spare. The Carboniferous didn't end quietly for everything, though. What came next, the Permian period, ended in the single worst mass extinction event in Earth's history. 90% of all marine life, 70% of land animals, gone. That's where this story goes next.